It's just a real nice plant to have. But if you take this kind of standard Philodendron, and you take your magic Harry Potter wand, and you zap it, when I talk to folks who are going to Florida, usually on vacation, I ask them what they're going to do, and I really don't need to do that because the real answer is going to be, we're going to Orlando, that means we're going to Disney. But every once in a while, you get folks that'll say, not only am I going to Disney, but I'm going to Universal. And what's the world of Universal? It's all about Harry Potter and wizardry and magic. And we have that wizardry and magic right here now in Tye-Dyed Iguana. And I'm going to give you an example of that. We have right here a Philodendron. And the Philodendron are really, really nice. They're nice and green. You can see they're very, very viney. They climb. It's just a real nice plant to have. But if you take this kind of standard Philodendron, you take your magic Harry Potter wand, and you zap it, you get our plant of the week, which is the white wizard Philodendron. I'm Kim from the Tye-Dyed Iguana plant team, and we're going to talk about this really interesting plant, which is very, very rare. It's hard to come by, and if you are one of those beginners in the world of plant care, you might want to back off on this one or just sort of ease your way into it, because it does take a little bit of extra care. Very, very pretty plant. It's a hybrid, so when I talked about the rarity, it's not one of these plants that grows in the wild. This is done at the nurseries. It's done through genetics to try and get this whiteness and this variegation marbleization that comes out on it. So it really is a hard to get plant. We've got maybe about a dozen of them or so right now here at Tye-Dyed. From a watering perspective, like many of your plants, it needs to dry out. You need to almost get about halfway down if you go ahead and put your knuckle in. And when that top 50% of your soil is dry, then it's good to thoroughly water it. Water it really, really good. Let it sit perhaps in a tray like this until the water comes out of the bottom. Then go ahead and dump your excess, and you're good probably for another week. Very susceptible to root rot. Root rot is not a problem of the plant, it's a problem of you. So be careful that you don't go ahead and over water it. It does need water, but probably once a week. From a soil perspective, also a little bit tricky. There's small pieces of bark in here, so when you're going to go ahead and repot this, probably 4 different things. You've got your regular potting soil, you've got some perlite, you've got some chunky bark, and maybe every once in a while, if you have an orchid mix, you can go ahead and put that in as well. It does like the soil to be slightly acidic, so if you're looking at something with a pH a little bit below 7, that's going to be best for this. The other tricky thing is light. Whenever you see a plant that's variegated or marbleized, light is usually the key, or if there's colors that are involved, perhaps like Photonia or the Prince of Orange that we talked about a little bit ago. Light is the critical factor. It needs to have enough light, but not so much light that you start to get the edges crispy. So we're talking bright indirect light, an east or a west facing window. That means that early morning sun or that sun as it sets later in the day is going to give you lots of light. If you start getting nothing but green leaves, that means you need to increase your light. That will give you your variegation. And I'm not going to really touch this, but I'm going to get close on your marbleization, on your variegation. The white parts are good, that's the prettiness of it, but it's a lack of chlorophyll that makes that green part turn white. Consequently, it's relatively delicate, relatively fragile. So as you're moving it around, if you happen to be touching the leaves, just be really careful around the white parts here because they are pretty fragile and you could inadvertently tear. If you do tear, it's not going to kill the plant. You can take one of your clippers or scissors and just make it look a little nicer, but you just need to be careful with that. From a humidity perspective, this likes humidity. Now you don't necessarily need to worry about misting the leaves a lot, that's okay, but it does like to be sitting in one of those trays with the pebbles and a lot of water in it. That just gives it natural humidity. And if you are one of those folks that happens to have plants in your bathroom, this is a great bathroom plant because that natural mist that you get from the showers in the morning is just a perfect environment here for your white wizard Philodendron. Temperatures, 65 to 85, so it's got a pretty wide range, which generally speaking is the normal comfort level for somewhere in your house. If you happen to have it in an environment, whether it's outside on a patio and the temperatures get into the 50s, anything below 55, not going to be good for this plant. So you need to be really, really careful about that. From a toxicity perspective, it is a toxic plant. There are just small bits of oxalate that are in the leaves, and if that happens to get chewed, they're microscopic, so you can't see those. But if a pet were to chew, or perhaps a child were to get around and do that, those very, very tiny pieces are almost like glass, and they can cause real harm. So just be aware of that. It's just something that is unique to this particular plant, generally speaking, unique to most of our philodendron. The other thing about philodendron is almost all of them, as I showed you earlier with the green philodendron, they're viney and they're climbers. So these can get to be up to 10 feet tall, 8 to 10 feet tall, depending upon how you take care of them, how you prune them, the size of the pot. And if they're going to start to grow, if you want it to be viney, you're going to need to use either a bamboo pole or perhaps a moss pole or a trellis, as that can get really, really high. If you want to keep it pruned back, then it's going to be probably okay in about the 2-foot range, but it does have the capacity to get just a little bit larger. From a propagation perspective, this one is not ready to propagate. It needs to get a little bit larger. When it does, you will cut one of these stems, take any leaves off of those lower nodes, keep perhaps 1 or 2 leaves on the top, and most people will go ahead and plant in soil. It does not work well here with our white wizard philodendron. Go ahead and use sphagnum moss. Get a good amount of sphagnum moss, wet it really, really well, then squeeze it out like you might squeeze out a sponge so it's nice and damp. Go ahead and put your cutting into that damp sphagnum moss, and in about a week to 10 days, you'll start to see little rooties appear. When those roots get to be about 1 inch long, then you're ready to go ahead and put it into the soil. And remember, we've got that soil mixture. So some of the things that make this a little bit difficult for the beginner is you've got to mix your soil, and you really have to be careful about your light so that you get the variegation that's going on. It's an extremely pretty plant, as I say, relatively rare because it's a hybrid. It's not grown in the wild, and we've got quite a few of them here. It's the first time we've had the white wizard philodendron here at Tye-Dyed Iguana. So don't be late. Come and take a look at these. It is the magic of Harry Potter right here at Tye-Dyed Iguana. Our plant of the week, the white wizard philodendron. And make sure you subscribe here to our TDI channel. We're not telling you right now, but in the coming days, you will see some really exotic plants.